It's time for some more. That's right, cowboy strong. So here we go. She sent Pax a text to ask if he was awake. This is page 54. His reply came back immediately. Yes, got too much on my mind to sleep. Her thumbs were a blur as she typed. Want to call it off? Her phone rang in seconds. Hello, Pax. What's keeping you awake? I'm worried that I might mess this up and say or do something wrong. Matt would be devastated if he found out, and now we need to plan a honeymoon, right? Only a long weekend one, and we're planning it to please Daddy. She paused, but by then we won't even need to have one. There's a mountain resort not far from Pueblo, Colorado. That might be nice, he suggested. Yes, she said without hesitation. Then I'll get the arrangements made, Pax said. There's a 4-day package and a 7-day. 4, she answered, and we can drive there rather than fly. I've been up there with Daddy on a cattlemen's convention. It's beautiful this time of year. We can come home in half a day if he gets sick. I read all I could find about his illness from what the papers say he brought home. From the doctor it says his memory and motor skills should be fine, but he'll get to where he sleeps more and more with the medication they gave him. The tumor might stop growing, but even if it does, the 6 months is all they're giving him. She paused. We'll hope that he stays well until the wedding's over. His calm tone comforted her. Who'd have thought that a big strapping cowboy like Paxton Callahan would have such a soft heart? She was so lucky that he was her friend and that he jumped right in when she asked him to marry her. Did you decide on how many women you're going to have in the wedding party? Yep, she said. If Daddy wants a big wedding, then by damn, he'll get one. I'm having 6. She named them off. I don't know any of them as well as I know their husbands. I've only met Levi and Claire at a couple of weddings, and Rose adores her. That's great, Pax replied. Now I can ask Levi, Tag, Hud, Justin, Kate, and Maverick, and not to have chose between them. They can each come down the aisle with their wives, right? Sure thing. She didn't care how the wedding planner set it all up, so as long as her father had a good time. Dealing with the grief and all this at the same time must be tough, Pax said. That's 54, 55, here's 56 and 57. It's sure not easy, she sighed. I can be over there in 5 minutes if I jump the fence, he said. I'm on a swing in my nightshirt and shorts, she told him. I'll be there in 4, he laughed. I'll have a beer waiting for you. She ended the call. She took a minute to actually put on a pair of shorts before she went into the kitchen and got a beer out of the fridge. She was surprised to see him sitting already on the swing when she returned to the porch. That was fast. She handed him a beer and sat down on the other end of the swing. I was motivated. He smiled and took a long couple of gulps. It don't take long to get here when I come across the pasture. There's a nice breeze this evening and the moon is throwing good light, so it was a pleasant walk. Are you okay? You sounded a little frazzled on the phone. I am, she answered. A couple days ago, the only thing I had on my mind was whether I'd go to the Wild Cowboy tomorrow night. I was listening to music while I took on a bath, and Vince Gill was started singing Go Rest High on that mountain. Ever since that song came out, Dad said he wants it sung at his funeral, and I don't know if I can bear it. I'll be right there with you, I promise, he said. I'm going to be right there beside you through all of this, Elena. She moved over closer to him and laid her head on his shoulder. God, but it felt good to have someone to lean on, share her burdens with. This is one screwed up mess we've gotten ourselves into, planning a wedding 1 minute and an annulment the next, and then a funeral somewhere in between, she whispered. He set his beer on the porch and put his arm around her. One step at a time. Wedding is first. When are you calling the ladies? I should get in touch with the guys tomorrow morning and get it set down before we meet with the wedding planner. I'll do it in the morning, she yawned. That was 56, 57. Now it says I marked 58, so I'm looking for the page where I marked 58. Oh, okay, right here at the end of 57, over to 58. I had the most horrible dream. Daddy wasn't here for the wedding, and they told me he passed before it was time to walk down the aisle. What would we do if it happened? Pax put his hand on her cheek and looked deep into her worried eyes. Don't borrow trouble from tomorrow. Simply walk down the path life gives you today. That's what Ma'am used to tell me. That's a pretty tall order, she said. Well, good morning, Matt. Joined them on the porch. Coffee is made. I hope you're not coming in dressed like that, Elena. We were talking about bridesmaids and groommen, and we fell asleep on the swing, Elena explained. I remembered me and Joy slept on the very swing a few times, but it was after we were married. My mama would have had a hissy fit if she caught us out here before we got hitched. He teased, y'all come in here and we'll make some breakfast. How does ham and eggs sound? Sounds real good, but I should be getting on across the fence to my house. Pax stood up and rolled the kinks out of his neck. Thanks for the offer, though. Elena gave Pax a quick peck on the cheek. See you this evening. Don't forget your list. I'm putting my ma'am right on it after breakfast. Call me if you need anything else. Love you. Love you, she said, and it didn't feel awkward at all this time to say those words. Matt was beaming when Pax left the porch and started jogging across the pasture. Running knee-deep grass, still wet with morning dew, dampened his jeans. The sun looked like an orange ball sitting on the edge of the earth when he put a hand on the wooden fence post and sailed over it like he was a professional hurdle jumper. He hoped that he had been able to sneak into the house without being heard, but no such luck. Maverick was making the first pot of coffee for the day when Pax opened the back door. He really wasn't in the mood for a lot of questions, but he braced himself for them anyway. Dum-dee-dum-dum. Maverick sang, or I guess it goes dum-dum-dee-dum. Sorry, I don't know. It's just, I'm tired. Everything's starting to run together. Maverick sang the wedding march. So the groom has either been out sowing wild oats, or else he's putting the cart before the pony and spent the night with the bride before the wedding. Which is it? I walked over to Elena's last night so we could talk about wedding plans, Pax asked. We fell asleep on the porch. End of story. So who's her maid of honor going to be? Maverick asked. She's inviting all the girls to be in the wedding party, so I'll have you, Tag, Justin, Levi, Hud, and Cade as my groomsmen. I need to get in touch with them today as soon as the coffee quits dripping. Pax poured a mugful and sat down at the table. That's getting to be a pretty big wedding. Maverick got his own coffee and joined him. What's going on? Bridget covered a yawn with her hand as she entered the room. Did I hear big wedding? I thought it was only going to be a small affair. It was until Matt decided that since Elena is his only child, he wants a big to-do. I still think it's too fast, Maverick said. We've done beat on the dead horse long enough. Let's have some waffles, then get out to the hayfield. That pasture's ready to cut, and the forecast says the sunshine's going to be for the next 3 days. Pax changed the subject. He wanted to talk about hay, cattle, or even building a fence. He didn't want to talk about a wedding or Elena, but since that was impossible, since every single detail the night before kept running through his mind, not even playing his favorite country music song in the tractor that morning helped. Every song reminded him of her and how it felt to sit on that swing with Elena right next to him. She was adorable in those little boxer shorts with Minnie Mouse printed on them, and that faded pink nightshirt. A tingle shot through his body, and then he thought about her long, long legs and those kissable lips. Shame on you, Pax. She'd been adorable in that shirt and those shorts, but his holding her and comforting her was the best part of the night. He hadn't felt like a fake fiancé at all the night before. In fact, it felt pretty damn good. That was 58, 59, and 60. We skip a few pages again. I want you to read this amazing book. I hope that you do. Oh, Donna, why do you make this so hard on yourself to find where you mark the page? Well, I guess we're just going to start back here on this page because I can't see why I marked it. Okay, they're meeting the wedding planner. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Carey, Crystal said, and a cup of black coffee would be nice, a triple shot of Knob Creek smoked maple. Elena thought, but she said, sweet tea will be fine, Daddy, and I can get it. Honey, y'all keep planning. I can take care of that, Matt told her. That's a big wedding. Is your venue large enough to accommodate that many? Crystal asked. We're using our sale barn, and yes, ma'am, it will hold that many people. The wedding and the reception will both be in the same barn. We'll make an aisle through the tables, Elena answered. I want a reception to be the buffet style. Okay, Crystal wrote as fast as she could. That's about 50 tables for 10. What about tablecloths? Yellow, Elena told her, with the shades of orange in the centerpieces. Well, you certainly know what you want. Crystal talked to her, but smiled at Pax. If you could see him in his tank top and black cowboy hat like he was wearing last night, you'd be panting by now, is what she's thinking. And Elena thought, why am I mentally fighting with a woman for eyeballing Pax? Because you've always had a crush on him, so admit it, the voice in the back of her head smarted off. I'll have my flower people make up several different centerpieces, then send you pictures so you can have your choice. Crystal continued. What do you have in mind for your corsages and boutonnieres? I can have them make up samples for those too. Also, artificial flowers are real. Real, Matt answered as he brought out coffee and tea for everyone. We want real flowers everywhere on the table's archway where they will be getting married. And for the corsages and bouton, yellow roses. That's Joy's favorite, and Elena always loved them too. My mother passed almost 20 years ago, Elena explained. I'm so sorry. My mother's my best friend, Crystal said. Mine was too, and yes, yellow roses may be mixed with those pretty peach-colored ones would be nice, Elena said. We should plan on sending out invitations no later than Tuesday. Crystal pulled a book of samples from the case and turned it around so Pax and Elena could thumb through it. While you're picking out a design, let's discuss what you want me to do for you. All of it, Matt said. You and I can talk food while they're deciding on invitations. We want 3 meats. Steak is number 1, chicken is next, smoked ribs for number 3. Then they all want sides to go with it. Yes, sir. Crystal kept writing. When they decided on a design, I may have enough to get started. After the invitations are sent, I'll be in touch about the next items on my list. Do you want me to provide the photographer and bands also? I can also work up prices with each of those without 'em. Just do all of it. Matt shoved an envelope across the table. A country band for sure. That's what we like. Here's a check already made out for you to get you started. When you get everything together, I'll give you the rest. I don't want Elena to have to worry about anything at all, and she will have everything she wants. Guilt laid on Elena's shoulders like a heavy blanket at the thought of all the money being spent on a fake wedding. What I want for you is to be well and for our lives to go back to the way they used to be. Elena's handbook, when she turned the next page of the sample invitations. Pax quickly laced her fingers and turned his pages for her. What do you think of this one? He pointed to a simple invitation with a long stem yellow and rose on the side. That would tie in with the yellow roses, but you should make the decisions. That's the one, she said. You can use it for napkins, thank you cards, and everything else. Want to change the wording? Crystal asked. No, that is what's on there is perfect. Elena's voice caught in her throat. Her father was giving her the wedding the most women would die for. And yet when she really got married, she'd probably have to go to the courthouse in her jeans. Except you'll need to change the names to Elena Joy Carey and Paxton Callahan. Middle name for Paxton? Crystal asked. No, ma'am, he answered. He slid the book back to her. You really got those printed, ordered, and sent all by Tuesday? Yes, I can, Crystal said. I told you she came highly recommended, Matt said. Elena stood up and gave her dad a hug. Thank you for everything, Daddy. I believe that's all we need for tonight. Crystal shoved the paperwork across the table. Who wants to sign the contract? I will, Elena said, and put her signature on the bottom of several pages. When she finished, Crystal gave her a copy of each page, stuffed everything into her case, and stood up. Thank you for the coffee. I'll be in touch with you. She glanced over at Elena the first of the week. Will be the fastest wedding I ever planned, and putting everything else on my calendar. I'm not putting anything else on my calendar until it's over. Thank you for that, Matt said. Walk you to the door. Elena pushed her chair back and got to her feet. This is page 63, 64, 65, 66. We're going to be going for a while. Okay, I've never done a barn wedding, but it's really exciting and thinking about it. I was thinking of using fairy lights to romanticize the barn a little. What do you think of that? Crystal said as they crossed the foyer. Elena opened the door for her, and 2 of them stepped out on the porch. That's a wonderful idea, and maybe use some tulle to soften up a little bit. She inhaled deeply, taking in the fresh night air. Think you could get me the dimensions of the barn by the first of the week so I know what size we're working with? Crystal asked. I'll put Daddy on the job, Elena nodded. Thank you for driving out here and getting all this together in such a short time. I should explain something, though. My dad has some short-term memory loss, and it seems to be getting worse, so maybe you should run things by me instead of him. I'm sorry to hear about your dad. That's a tough thing to see looming in the future. I'll sure enough keep you in the loop, Crystal agreed. Would you consider letting me use pictures on the website? I'll give you 10% discount on the entire wedding if you agree. Of course, I'd have to have permission from the photographer, but since she's a cousin, I don't think she'll mind. I'd have to ask Pax before I said yes. She couldn't very well tell Miss Pretty Blue Eyes, Crystal, that she was really a fake wedding to please her father, and then there was already an annulment or a divorce in the planning. Fair enough. Let me know by the wedding day, and if you agree, I'll take 10% off the final payment, and thanks again. Crystal headed out across the yard toward the van. Pax chose that very moment to slip his arms around her from behind and rest his chin on her shoulder. Might as well make a good impression on the lady, he whispered. You already did, Elena told him. If you weren't marrying me, she would have dragged you off to the hayloft, tossed her clothes in the corner." "Oh, honey," Pax said, "she's not a hayloft girl. She's more of a fancy dinner, five-star hotel woman. Did she make you a little jealous?" "Not a bit." Elena whipped around and put her arms around his neck. "You're a hayloft cowboy, not a satin sheets guy." She heard the sound of the van's engine starting and asked, "Is she looking this way?" "Oh, yeah," he answered, "and the window is rolled down." Elena leaned in, and her lips met Pax's in a fiery kiss. Her knees went weak, and she felt as if they were floating. Every nerve in her body tingled, and her pulse raced so fast that she had trouble catching her breath. When she finally took half a step back, she'd forgotten all about Crystal. "I'd hate to see what a jealous kiss look would be like," Pax teased. "That knocked my boots clean over into New Mexico. You'll probably find mine pretty close to yours." She took another step back. He chuckled. "Want to go get some ice cream to cool us both down?" "Love to," she answered. Let me tell Daddy. You go on, get the truck started, and turn on that AC on high. We both need to cool down." "Yes, ma'am, but you do know that after we're married, you can't boss me around so much, don't you?" He flashed her another grin. "But until then?" She cocked her head to the side. "We'll talk about that over ice cream." He took a step toward her and kissed her on the cheek. That was 66, 67, 68. Pax is just one fine man. Okay, here we go. "It's not cooled down much, but it was a damn hot when I got inside," he said. "As hot as that kiss was?" she said. "Oh, no, honey." He shook his head as he drove away from the yard. "Hell ain't even that hot." "Do you think things would have been different between us if we'd gotten involved with this wedding stuff?" "Never know now, but I doubt it," he answered. "Why?" she asked. "I always had a crush on you, Elena, and you bet you're about to inherit the second biggest ranch in the Panhandle. I don't have anything to bring to the table like that, and I felt like folks would think I was marrying you for your money." "I'm too proud for that, I guess," he replied, "and besides, you hurt my heart when you slapped the hell out of my cheek when I kissed you behind the barn, remember?" "Evidently I didn't do a good job, because you're still raising hell ever since then." She smarted off. "I've been trying to prove that some of these girls like my kisses," he told her. "Got the job done yet?" she asked. "Maybe," he shrugged. "I wanted to ask you to the prom when we were seniors, but when I finally got the courage to even walk up to you in the hallway at school, you gave me a dirty look." "I did not," she protested. "Yep, you did. You glared at me like I took another step toward you. You knocked me square on my butt," he said. She clapped a hand over her mouth and giggled. "What's so funny?" he asked. "I remember that day now. Wyatt Downing was right behind you, and he suddenly got serious, and he made a rude hand gesture. I was giving him the dirty look, not you." "Would you have gone with me if I asked?" Pax asked. "Probably," she answered. "That was a long time ago, and by the way, so was that kiss. I shouldn't have slapped you, but you were right out and kissed another girl the next day, so," she raised an eyebrow, "I had to do something to restore my 13-year-old manhood." Even if it was years later, he felt like a king that she liked him enough in those days to be jealous. "Did you go kiss another boy?" 68, 69, 70. "Hell no! I didn't even kiss another boy until I was 16. "Did you like it then?" he asked. "No. He didn't do much better than you did," she teased. "Ouch," he groaned. "I've been practicing for weeks on the back of my hand. I thought I had it down, and honey, let me tell you something." He brought her hand to his lips and kissed each knuckle. "When my lips touched yours, my heart skipped at least 2 beats." "So did mine," she admitted. "But we need to talk about the business of the ranch now." "Party pooper," he joked. "One of us has to be," she told him. "Now then, you're half owner of the Callahan Ranch, right?" "That's right, and honey, it's not a big ranch, so you're not marrying me for my money." He continued to tease her. "How do you know?" "I might be wanting to add the Callahan Ranch to the Bar C," she said. "No way!" He shook his head. "That's Callahan land, and that many acres does the Bar C cover? How many permanent hired hands does the ranch employ? How many temporary kids do you hire in the summer?" he asked. "You thinking about suing me for half of the ranch when we get divorced?" she asked. "No, I'm just making you see what I'm talking about." He turned out to the lane into the country road. "Well, the Bar C isn't as big as the King Ranch," she said, "or even the Rockin' Bee. It's not listed on top 10 ranches in Texas by a long shot, but we've got 90,000 acres, 20 hired hands who stay in the bunkhouses with Lucas, and we usually hire about 50 local kids in the summer. Does that answer your question?" Yep, and it's pretty close to what I figured. The Callahan Ranch has a little over 1,000 acres. Maverick and I are trying to take care of it with only ourselves and a handful of summertime help. You get the picture?" He turned off the country road and highway leading into town. She folded her arms over her chest. "No, and I don't. No, and I don't, and I never will." It was his turn to ask, "Why?" "Because no one should marry for money, but then again no one should ever let money keep them from a happy relationship," she told him. "Not if you live by the cowboy code," Pax said. "I know that code as well as you do," she said. "Then you know you should never let anyone take over your courage, your strength, or your dignity." "I guess it would take a strong cowboy to follow his heart and not let what other people say influence his decision to fall in love with a woman because she owns more dirt than he does," Elena said. He pulled the truck into the parking spot at Mama's little ice cream parlor and turned off the engine. "Yep, it would, but I'm not so sure we're really made for each other. Not for the long haul. You can outdo me in everything, including ranching. I feel like kind of a kept man." "Hey, don't start that," she scolded. "If we were really engaged and getting married, you'd be bringing a lot to the partnership. You're the kindest man I know, and there's not another rancher out there who takes his job as serious as you do. No way in the world would you ever be a kept man, and believe me when I say that you're equal in everything, Paxton Callahan." "Oh, really?" he countered. "Who won the most trophies in bareback bronc riding? I'll say this right in a minute, I promise. Who got thrown the most practice and has back trouble now?" she asked right back. "And if we're throwing stuff around, who's been known to haul hay by the light of a truck so he can get it in before the rain hits the next morning? Or who's come over here more than once to help Daddy when the hired help couldn't make it to the ranch because there was a foot of snow on the ground?" "This is all crazy conversation anyway," he said. "If we weren't getting married already, neither of us would begin to think of that M word on the basis of one hot kiss." "I sure wouldn't." She opened the door truck. "And Pax, thanks for being honest with me." "Hey, that's my job," he told her. He got out and went around the front of the vehicle to extend his hand to help her out. "Want to try for another one of those kisses again right here to see if maybe it was beginner's luck?" She shook her head and tucked her hand behind into his. "Nope, I just still need ice cream to cool down from that last one." "Rain check," he suggested as the automatic doors swung open. "Maybe." She went straight to the counter, looked up at the menu. "I want a double dip of chocolate almond and a glass of sweet tea." "And you, sir?" He pointed to the menu. "I want a double fudge brownie sundae like that picture right up there and a big glass of ice water," he answered, as it was oblivious to her charms. "I want to change my order." Elena laid her hand on the counter. "I'll have the same thing as my fiancé." "Congratulations," the gray-haired woman said. "You might not remember me, but I took care of the nursery when you kids were babies. This one is on the house for me to celebrate your engagement." That was 70, 71, 72. And we're on 73. "Well, thank you," Pax said. "You're Wilma," Elena said. "I don't recognize you without your red hair. I got tired of dyeing it and let it go natural." Wilma told him. "I'll have the ice cream out to you in a few minutes. Thank you so much. That's sweet of you," Elena smiled. "Small world," Pax said as he ushered Elena to the booth. "Yep. And speaking of that, did you notice Trudy is sitting right over there with Billy Ray?" Elena asked. Pax glanced over his shoulder and waved at the mother and son. "Anyone else?" "The place is packed." She slid into a booth, and some of them already had their cell phones out. Pax took his place from her and reached across the table to hold both hands. "Ignore them and look right into my eyes. We've come out of hiding, so we're so much in love that we just can't get enough of each other." "Do you really think this is the way engaged couples act?" she giggled. "We're almost 30, for God's sakes, not 16. "Yep, we are," he laughed with her. "But think how much gossip fodder we're giving Trudy right now. She doesn't even know that you basically told me that I'm full of crap. She thinks that we're really making eyes at each other." "And here they come," Elena whispered. She slipped her hands away from his and looked up at Trudy. "Well, hello there. Did y'all have a craving for ice cream tonight, too?" "Ice cream is always good on a good hot night," Billy Ray said. "I wanted to come over and congratulate you in person. I'm so excited about your engagement, and so is your dad." I could hear it in his voice when he called at the church to see if the church was available for that day. "I've already got half a dozen ladies who are going to help with the wedding shower. Have you registered for any gifts yet?" "Thank you, and no, ma'am. We just met with the wedding planner tonight. Since they're moving things so fast, you could wait a few weeks to give us a shower, maybe after the honeymoon even." Oh no, Trudy talked with her hands. We're already got the ball rolling and we're so excited. We're about giving y'all a shower. I even talked to your granny Iris several times and other ladies in the church group. She leaned forward and lowered her voice. Don't forget to register with Amanda's gifts since she's local or to hurt her feelings. And besides, she's the one of the shower hostesses. Billy Ray stepped up from behind his mother. Got your best man all picked out? Maverick, of course, Pax answered, and the guys are out at the ranch where we worked are going to be the groomsmen. Well, if you need me for anything, holler, Billy Ray said. We'll sure keep you in mind, Elena smiled up at him, and thanks so much, Billy Ray. Trudy patted her on the shoulder. Here comes Wilma with your ice cream. Y'all better get after it before it melts. We'll be in touch the first of the week to get your colors for the shower. Mother and son turned and made their way back through the crowd. Craven? Pax's eyes twinkled. Don't pregnant women get craven? Are you trying to tell me something here tonight? Damn it, Elena gasped. And here y'all are. Wilma set two sundaes and ice water on the table. If y'all need anything, let me know. Pax picked up a spoon and dug into his ice cream. Want me to call her back for a side order of dill pickles? And what was that about wanting a shower? 72, 73, 74. Paxton had thought that she would blush, but instead she ran the hand back down the back of his necks, like he's got lots of necks, back of his neck, and whispered in a seductive voice, Not yet. I think I have to be in the second trimester before the pickle craving starts, and I feel guilty about getting gifts for a sham wedding. We'll have to give them all back after we get the annulment. Page 77. Elena was supposed to be ready at 8 o'clock, and he knocked on her door 5 minutes to spare. No one answered, so he rapped harder. Hey, Matt came from around the end of the house. Elena told me to tell you to meet her in the barn. I've got a cattlemen's meeting I can't miss tonight over in Tula. I'm already going to be a few minutes late, so I'll let her explain. Matt hurried over to his truck, settled in behind the wheel, and sped off. Pax crawled back into his vehicle, picked up the phone in the passenger seat, and called Elena. She was breathless, and when she answered, I'm so sorry, Pax, but I can't go to the Wild Cowboy. I've got 2 heifers having trouble delivering. I'm in the first barn, and I could use some help. Be there in 5 minutes, he said as he ended the call. He drove down a rutted path to the barn closest to the house. He got out and jerked off his good boots, grabbed his old black rubber boots from the bed of his truck, and shoved his feet down in them. His jeans and shirts could be washed, but he sure didn't want to ruin his lucky boots. The barn door squeaked when he slid it open, and Elena yelled, I'm back here. She came out from the hallway between the rows of stalls and met him in the middle of the floor. She wore jeans with holes in knees, chambray shirt over a dirty white tank top. Strands of blonde hair had escaped her ponytail, which had a piece of straw dangling from the end. I'm a mess, but I can't leave the heifers, and all the hired hands are gone, and Daddy has a meeting. He took her in his arms and said, We're ranchers. This is what we signed up for. There'll be other Saturday nights when we can go dance at the Wild Cowboy. Let's check on those 2 heifers. You're a good man, Paxton. She led the way back to the stalls. I did enjoy the thought of dancing with you all night, but I'm sure glad that as ranchers we understand each other. I was feeling the same way about you, he said as he opened the stall and checked the first heifer. First calf, right? Elena nodded. She and the other one were both out of my personal herd. They belong to me, not the ranch. I've raised them from babies. I probably shouldn't have bred them to our prime bull, since he always threw big calves. This ain't my first time pulling calves. Pax went over to the other stall and dropped to his knees. This one will come first. If we're lucky, she won't need much help. She's a little bigger than the other one over there. Now all we can do is wait. And I had a mind to do some dancing. I got to warn you. I'm not nearly as smooth in these rubber boots, though. Here in the barn? She frowned. Come on now, Elena. He stood up, took her by the hand, and led her out in the middle of the barn. 77, 78, 79. You got country music band hiding in the bed of your truck? She asked. Nope, don't even have a jukebox. He laid his phone on the bale of hay and hit the playlist that he listened to when he was plowing. But I don't need either one to make music so I can dance with a pretty lady. So you think I'm pretty? She wrapped both her arms around his neck. No, Elena, I think you're beautiful. He pulled her close to him and dropped his hands to her waist. Having her in his arms set off those same jolts of desire that he'd felt every time he touched her. Crazy thing was that even though he'd been with lots of women, he'd never gotten such a feeling with any other one of them. They swayed to Kenny Chesney and David Lee Murphy singing, Everything's Gonna Be All Right. You really believe what they're saying? She asked. You don't? He shot right back. No, I do not. My daddy won't be with us by Christmas time. By then, I'll be divorced, and everyone in town will be saying that I wasted his money on a lavish wedding instead of using it to find a cure for him," she muttered. "This wise woman, a tall blonde to be exact, told me that we shouldn't care about what other people say. Besides, honey, I'll stick by your side until the baby is born anyway," he teased. "Oh, you are so funny," Elena said. "I bet Trudy is already making notes about a baby shower sometime this fall." "Well, you did say you were craving ice cream." He did some fancy footwork when Travis Tritt started singing Trouble, one of my favorites. That was 79, and this is 80. Pax swung Elena to one side, brought her back up to his chest, and together they did some fancy swing dancing all the way through the song. Elena was giggling when the song ended, but before another one began, one of the heifers let out a bellow loud enough to rattle the sheet metal siding on the barn. Elena whipped around and ran back to the second stall with Pax right behind her. She peeked over the top of the gate in time to see the hooves of the calf coming out. The cow's side bunched up with another contraction, and a big black head popped out. And after that, the rest was easy, and in minutes the mother was on her feet taking care of her newborn. "Is it going to live?" Elena whispered. "Give it a minute. She's only been cleaning it up for a few seconds." Pax slipped an arm around her waist. "Look, she took her first breath. That's a good-looking girl you got there." "Yes, she is," Elena nodded. "She'll grow up to be a breeder." "You do know that you are going to own everything on this ranch, so why do you have a personal herd?" Pax asked. The baby struggled up on its wobbly legs and bawled. The mama nudged it toward her udder, and the calf began to have its first meal. "I started my own herd when we were showing cattle at the county fair. Remember, you and I competed a lot at the FFA." She didn't take her eyes off the mother and the baby. "Of course I remember," he said. "One of my proudest moments was when my steer beat yours out when we were seniors. Daddy told me not to show that animal, but I wouldn't listen to him. God, I feel sorry for our parents, or kids of the seniors now," she said. "Amen." Pax remembered all the things he did put his grandma through when he was a senior in high school. "We knew everything about everything that year, didn't we? If we were half as smart as we thought we were now, we'd be running the whole world." "We were going to set the world on fire, for sure," Elena nodded. "Anyway, I built up my own little herd, but I've never spent a dime on money I made from it. It's all going into a saving account for my first child's college fund." "Oh, so the second and third ones don't count, or get to go to college?" he teased. "No, that's on you to provide for the rest of them," she giggled. "Now who's being funny?" he asked. It looks like we're going to go for a while here. Okay, the heifer in the other stall bawled, and Elena whipped around to go see about her. By the time she opened the gate, Pax was right beside her. This time there was no hooves in sight, and the heifer was heaving with contractions that were coming every few seconds. "She's in distress." Elena wasn't worried, though. With Pax's help, she'd be confident that the two of them would take care of the prize heifer. She dropped to her knees, threw off her chambray shirt, and rubbed the animal's sides. "Come on, sweetheart, you can do this. I know you can." Minutes later, seemed like hours, the calf finally entered the world, hooves like they were supposed to. Pax held a hand out to her, and she let him help her to her feet, and then the two of them watched the young mother take care of the baby, just like nature taught her to do. "I never get tired of the feeling I get when there's a new calf born on the ranch," she sighed. "It's like the next generation coming on." "It really is. I feel the same way," Pax agreed. "You ever wonder if we could read a mama cow's expression? Would it be like new parents staring at their baby through a hospital nursery window?" Elena asked. "I expect their mothers feel the same, no matter what the species. Think about a mama cat. She would take on an elephant if it tried to mess with her kittens," Pax answered. Elena caught a whiff of his shaving lotion, something woodsy and sexy. Meantime, her hair was a fright from working outside all day. She had perspired so much her skin felt to her like she'd been rolling in salt. Her tank top was dirty, and her work shirt likely ruined. Pax let go of her hand and reached out to brush her hair away from her face. "Congratulations on a job well done, ma'am." He bent to brush a sweet kiss across her lips. That was page 80, 81, 82. We're still on. Ooh, we're getting close to the paper clips, so I have to keep you on your edge of your seat for tomorrow night. "One of each." Pax smiled at Elena. She might look like a mess right then, but to him she was beautiful. He recognized the pride I can't talk, at having two new calves to add to her herd, and knew exactly what she was feeling. He had the same bursting feeling in his heart when any new calf was born over on his Callahan ranch. "You got a girl over there," he nodded in the direction on the other stall, "and a boy right here. Both seem healthy, and that bull calf looks to me like he could be a really good enough breeder to pay for a semester of college." "Yep," she said. "Thanks for being here with me." "Aw, shucks," he kicked the straw on the barn floor, not the barn door, Donna. It's late. I worked today, and all my words are starting to run together. I apologize." "You would have done fine without me." She looked right in his eyes without blinking. "Maybe, but it felt good to have you here with me, Pax." "Then you're so welcome. Bringing those calves into the world meant more than going out dancing," he admitted. Spoken like a true rancher. She took a deep breath as if she was about to say something else, but changed the subject. "I need a shower. I can feel the dirt growing on me." "I guess I should go," he said. "Why?" She grabbed him by the hand and pulled him along with her. "I'm too nasty to even get in either of our trucks. There's a bathroom off the tack room. I'll take a shower there. Then we can go watch a little TV or talk." She opened the doors to the nearest tack room he'd ever been in. Neatest tack room he'd ever been in. Most barns had a storage room for things like saddles, tools, smelled like sweaty old leather, and no air conditioning, but this place was spick and span, clean and cool. Elena went to a small refrigerator, took out a beer for him. "Remote is on the end table. Is something wrong?" "No, but our tack room sure doesn't look or feel like this," he said. "Daddy turned it into a little poker cave a few years ago, back when we sold the last of our horses and went to four-wheelers to round up cattle. Then he built a room on the back side of the barn to store what was left in here when he got rid of the saddles. The only ones left on the place are my saddles. The one I used to ride my Shetland when I started training my barrel racing, and a couple others are at the house on display in Daddy's den." "I thought you were a bronc rider." Pax turned the bottle up and drank from it. "I was till a couple years ago. I got tired of the aches and pains," she admitted as she disappeared behind a door. 82, 83, 84. Pax sunk down a buttery soft leather futon and looked around. A poker table, complete with chips, in the middle of the table. Was to his left, a desk computer on the top, set to his right. When he and his friends played poker, it was usually around the kitchen table. He picked up the remote. Before he could push the power button, he caught the reflection of pictures on the wall behind him of the TV screen. He stood up and turned around to see a collection of photos of Elena. The center one was her Shetland pony holding a blue ribbon. A couple pictures had Elena's mother, Joy, in them with her, and her pony. "She sure looks like Joy did," he muttered. His eyes went back to the first photo. He remembered Elena wearing her hair in two braids like that when they were in elementary school. She'd always been tall, but to him she'd been beautiful even then. She intimidated the hell out of me," he whispered as he studied several more shots in the bronc riding days. Those would have been right after high school, when he had begun to really compete with her to prove himself, and to her, that she shouldn't have slapped him over the first kiss or even given him those dirty looks all through high school. Mam used to tell him all these things happened when they were supposed to, not necessarily when folks wanted them to. Maybe he and Elena were supposed to be friends, or even more, or weren't supposed to be friends, or even more until right now. "In that case," he muttered, "then what was a fake engagement got to do with anything? And where was it leading us?" Finally he sat back down, turned the TV on, and started channel surfing. He was watching a bull riding event when she finally came out of the bathroom. She twisted a white towel around her head. A pair of bright red shorts with turquoise trim peeked out from under an oversized T-shirt. She smelled like vanilla and roses mixed together, and there was a whiff of coconut when she removed the towel. She shook her blonde hair out. "Oh, I love bull riding," she said, and sat down beside him, reached across him, and picked up his beer. She took a long drink and then handed it back to him. "Thank you. I needed that." "I don't mind sharing with a beautiful woman." He winked at her. "I sure don't feel pretty with wet hair and dressed like this," she said. "Well, darling, Mam always said that beauty from the inside out shines everything on the outside," he told her. "My mama said the same thing," she said, and then got quiet. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Tomorrow will be the first Sunday since Daddy told me about his time," she stammered. Pax scooted over and put his arm around her. "I'll be right there beside you. After all, we are engaged." "I'm scared, Pax," she whispered. "I always plowed ahead like a bull going through a flimsy fence, but I look at this huge ranch and everything I'll need to do. Daddy has taught me well, but to think about making all those decisions I'll have to make without him is terrifying. You could run this place with one hand tied behind your back, woman, but you remember you got good neighbors, so when a cowboy's sitting right here who's willing to help, all you got to do is holler and I'll come running. Not only, though, however long we're married, but as long as you need me. And you can talk with me about any decision you need to make," he assured her with a sideways hug. "I couldn't get through this without you." She rested her head on his shoulder. Having someone to talk to is a comfort. And that was page 82, 83, 84, 85, and 86. That's where we're leaving tonight. I hope to get through another 20 pages with you tomorrow night. Don't know, but I hope to. I'll have to mark them off tonight after we get done shooting this video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking. And thank you for being a subscriber to my community. God bless. Stay safe. Stay well. Wear a mask, please. And thank you.